How would you describe your relationship today?
I feel like we're great friends and co-parents. I am pregnant.
You just keep suckering me into these kids.
I wasn't like planning
I can't
this.
handle all this responsibility.
You're walking to the beach.
You're walking into you. Look at you, you all. Shut the f up.
I feel like I want to cry.
Why?
Just because it's like, it gives me anxiety. Sometimes I'm just like, it makes you really like analyze just like where you're at. And then I'm like, sometimes like, what am I doing?
Rumors of a shocking split between Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker have been dominating headlines, leaving fans everywhere asking the same question: is the fairy tale finally collapsing? For years, their romance was sold as the perfect Hollywood love story. Multiple weddings, over-the-top declarations of love, and even the arrival of baby Rocky, all wrapped up in a glossy Instagram package. But while the world was distracted by the roses and candlelight, Scott Disick quietly dropped a cryptic message that flipped the narrative upside down. His words weren't just random. They carried weight, sharp enough that fans immediately started connecting dots no one had dared to link before. Was this Scott's way of throwing shade at Travis? Or was it something deeper? A warning that the love story everyone celebrated was built on cracks too big to ignore. Because once you peel back the carefully crafted image of Kourtney and Travis's marriage, what you find isn't a perfect romance at all. It's a story of ghosts from the past, sister rivalries reignited, and a rockstar lifestyle clashing with the Kardashian empire. And Scott's message? It might be the biggest clue yet that this fairy tale was never built to last. From the outside, Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker looked like the couple who cracked the code to happily ever after. Their story felt like something straight out of a Hollywood script. Two longtime friends living just blocks apart in Calabasas who suddenly transformed their neighborly bond into a whirlwind romance. Almost overnight, they went from casual hangouts to headline fixtures. Red carpets, front row fashion shows, endless public affection, fans couldn't look away. It wasn't just love, it was a spectacle. Then came the milestones that seemed to lock their forever into place. A jaw-dropping beachside proposal surrounded by roses and candlelight. Not one, but multiple weddings. A quick Vegas chapel ceremony, a legally binding courthouse exchange, and finally a lavish Italian celebration dripping in luxury. Each one bigger, flashier, and more dramatic than the last. And when Kourtney revealed she was pregnant with baby Rocky, the narrative felt complete. The Kardashians had a new power couple. Travis wasn't just Kourtney's husband. He was her soulmate, her family's new center stage. To millions watching online, their love became more than just another celebrity romance. It was proof, or at least it looked like proof, that true love could survive the chaos of Hollywood. Every Instagram post reinforced the illusion. Grand declarations of devotion, steamy photo shoots, over-the-top gifts. Each picture seemed to scream, this is what real love looks like. And for fans scrolling through their feeds, it was easy to believe. But the truth about fairy tales is simple. They only work if you don't peek behind the curtain, because once you look closer, those roses start to wilt. And according to Scott Disick, who had seen it all unfold from the sidelines, the cracks in this picture-perfect romance had been forming long before anyone noticed. While the public was busy swooning over Kourtney and Travis's rose-petal proposals and endless kisses, those closest to them started noticing things that didn't quite match the glossy image. Behind the Instagram filters and red carpet smiles, the chemistry sometimes looked off. Paparazzi photos caught moments where Travis appeared tense, while Kourtney looked distant. What fans once praised as raw passion, the constant PDA, the hand-holding that never seemed to end, began to feel less like intimacy and more like performance, almost as if the couple was proving their love to the world instead of just living it. And then came the whispers. Old rumors about Travis's fiery temper and messy past resurfaced, with some insiders hinting that his rockstar lifestyle wasn't entirely behind him. At the same time, fans online began pointing out small inconsistencies. The energy that looked explosive on stage and social media didn't always carry over into candid, unfiltered moments. For most, these details were easy to brush aside. After all, every couple has bad days. But for someone like Scott Disick, who had shared nearly a decade of history, children, and heartbreak with Kourtney, the red flags were impossible to miss. He knew her better than anyone, and what he saw wasn't the picture of effortless happiness the world was being sold. Little cracks started forming in the fairy tale, and Scott was watching it all unfold. Because the truth is, even the most carefully staged romances can't hide everything. And when a ghost from Travis's past came back to haunt the Kardashian family, those cracks became impossible to ignore. If there was one revelation that shook the carefully crafted image of Kourtney and Travis more than any other, it was this. Years before he ever married Kourtney, Travis Barker openly admitted in his memoir that he had a crush on Kim Kardashian, Kourtney's younger sister. At the time, it seemed like harmless oversharing, a rock star talking about celebrity circles. the kind of juicy confession tabloids love and fans quickly forget. But once Kourtney and Travis's relationship became serious, that detail stopped being a quirky anecdote and started looking like a shadow that refused to fade. Travis's ex-wife, Shanna Moakler, poured fuel on the fire. She claimed his admiration for Kim wasn't just a passing thought, but something that crossed lines it shouldn't have. While Travis denied ever being unfaithful, he didn't deny being attracted to Kim. And for Kourtney, that distinction made little difference. Imagine celebrating your new husband while knowing he once publicly desired your own sister. That's not just awkward. It's a wound that forgiveness can cover, but never really heal. Every family dinner, every holiday, every public appearance with Kim suddenly carried unspoken tension. Even if nothing physical had happened, the thought lingered. And in a family as public as the Kardashians, whispers don't stay whispers for long. They explode into headlines. Fans picked up on it immediately. Social media erupted with theories. Was this crush the reason behind Kourtney and Kim's long-standing rivalry? Their arguments had already become infamous on reality TV, but with this twist, the feud seemed more personal than ever. Even Travis couldn't fully escape the fallout. In interviews, he dismissed the rumors as ridiculous, but denial didn't erase doubt. For Kourtney, the ghost of Travis's past admiration for her sister wasn't going anywhere. And for Scott Disick, watching from the sidelines, it was proof of something bigger. That the cracks in this marriage weren't just about Travis and Kourtney. They were tangled up in Kardashian family drama itself, and that made them even harder to ignore. Because when sibling rivalry collides with marriage, the results are rarely pretty. And soon, that rivalry would spill out into the public in ways that made fans question everything. The Kardashian sisters have never been strangers to drama, but once Travis entered the picture, the tension between Kourtney and Kim took on an entirely new edge. What had once been a mix of playful jabs and occasional explosive fights started to feel like something deeper, heavier, and far more personal. At first, it looked like things might finally improve. Kourtney posted a heartfelt birthday tribute to Kim, and tabloids rushed to call it a peace offering. Headlines painted the sisters as finally burying the hatchet. Fans hoped the rivalry had cooled, but that illusion didn't last long. Just weeks later, Kourtney shocked everyone when she showed up to Halloween dressed as Kim. Not just any Kim, but Kim's infamous floral print Met Gala look, complete with the slick ponytail and faux baby bump. Social media went wild. Was this a harmless joke between siblings? Or was it a subtle jab? A reminder of Travis's admitted attraction to Kim that never fully went away. Fans split instantly. Some defended Kourtney, calling it funny and lighthearted. Others saw it as cruel. Proof that the sister rivalry was alive and well. And once again, the internet dissected every detail, frame by frame, post by post. Even Hulu leaned into the drama, teasing upcoming episodes of The Kardashians with icy stares and heated conversations between the sisters. What was once family tension behind closed doors became reality TV gold, and audiences couldn't get enough. But for Scott Disick, none of this was surprising. Having lived through years of Kardashian chaos, he hinted that what fans saw as playful shade was actually the surface of something much deeper. A rivalry that had now spilled directly into Kourtney's marriage. And when sibling tension collides with love and loyalty, the fallout is rarely small. For Kourtney, the constant reminder of Travis's past admiration for Kim wasn't just a tabloid headline. It was a wound that kept reopening every time the sisters clashed. For Travis, it was baggage he couldn't fully shake. And for Scott, it was another red flag waving in plain sight. But the family feud was only one piece of the puzzle. Because while the sisters traded blows, Travis's own past was beginning to creep back into the spotlight, and those shadows carried enough chaos to threaten everything. Long before he was known as Kourtney Kardashian's husband, Travis Barker had already built a reputation that followed him everywhere. To fans, he was the tattooed drummer who lived loud, fast, and reckless. But behind the fame and music, his relationships carried the same chaos. His ex-wife, Shanna Moakler, never held back about what life with Travis was really like. She painted a picture of late nights, endless temptations, and betrayal that left scars long after their divorce. She accused him of stepping out more than once, not as a rare slip, but as part of a larger pattern. And here's the thing. Travis never outright denied it. In interviews, he admitted loyalty wasn't his strong suit in the past. He described himself as someone who loved freedom, who thrived on adrenaline and spontaneity. For a rock star, that honesty sounded authentic. But for a husband promising forever, it sounded more like a warning. At first, fans gave him the benefit of the doubt. After all, everyone has a past. People change. Maybe Kourtney was the one who grounded him, who finally made him put stability over chaos. But the louder the public affection grew, the constant kissing, the endless hand-holding, the over-the-top Instagram declarations, the more people began to wonder, was this real intimacy? Or was it performance? Scott Disick seemed to know the answer. Watching from the sidelines, he hinted that the very things fans loved, the PDA, the dramatic gestures, the perfect photos, weren't proof of unshakable love at all. To him, it looked like smoke and mirrors, a show designed to distract from cracks that were already spreading beneath the surface. And whispers started to circulate inside the Kardashian circle too. Was Travis truly a changed man, or was he repeating old patterns under a new name? Because history has a way of repeating itself, and Travis's history was filled with messy endings. The question wasn't whether he loved Kourtney. That part was clear. The question was whether he could love her in the way she needed, with loyalty, stability, and respect. And for some, the answer was already starting to look shaky. But the past wasn't the only problem, because even Kourtney herself began to change in ways that left her family, and Scott, deeply concerned. In the early days of her romance with Travis, Kourtney Kardashian looked like she was glowing. Every red carpet appearance, every Instagram post, every headline seemed to show a woman more in love and more alive than ever before. Fans celebrated it as Kourtney finally getting her happy ending, but those who knew her best noticed something different. Her style began to shift, slowly mirroring Travis's edgy, rock-inspired look. The flowy, soft outfits she once favored gave way to darker tones, leather jackets, and band tees. Her routines changed too. Her diet, her hobbies, even the music she surrounded herself with. On the surface, it looked like growth, but to close friends and family, it felt less like Kourtney discovering herself, and more like she was bending to fit into Travis's world. The fiercely independent woman who once resisted being told what to do seemed to be compromising more than ever before. Even her siblings noticed. Kim, Khloe, and others reportedly whispered that Kourtney didn't seem like her usual confident, stubborn self. Instead, she looked like someone adjusting her identity to align with her husband's lifestyle. To outsiders, it was a glow-up. To insiders, it was a red flag. And Scott Disick, who had spent nearly a decade building a life with her, saw the change instantly. He hinted that what looked like passion was, in reality, control disguised as romance. In his eyes, the compromises weren't small. They were slowly erasing the independence that had always defined Kourtney. Then came the public displays of affection. At first, fans couldn't get enough. The steamy Instagram photos, the kisses that seemed endless, the constant hand-holding, it was the stuff of tabloid dreams. But over time, the affection began to look less spontaneous and more calculated, almost like it was meant to convince the world, and maybe even themselves, that their marriage was unbreakable. For Scott, this wasn't just love on display, it was performance. And performance, no matter how convincing, can't cover up cracks forever. Because once life outside the spotlight and outside of Calabasas came into play, those cracks only widened. And nothing exposed them more than when Kourtney decided to join Travis on tour. For most couples, traveling together is a chance to grow closer. But for Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker, life on the road turned into a pressure cooker that magnified every crack already forming in their marriage. When Kourtney decided to join Travis on Blink-182's world tour in Australia, it looked like a dream. She brought baby Rocky along, as well as her older kids, and fans praised the move as proof that their blended family could handle anything. To outsiders, it was the ultimate show of support. A rockstar husband and his devoted wife making it all work. On Instagram, the images told the same story. Kourtney smiling with the kids, Travis posing backstage, adorable family snapshots that painted them as unstoppable. But behind the scenes, the reality was much harsher. Eyewitnesses said Travis often looked tense, his body language stiff even when greeting fans. Kourtney, meanwhile, appeared exhausted. Between long flights, endless rehearsals, late nights, and caring for multiple children, she was running on fumes. What should have been a glamorous adventure felt more like survival. Then came Valentine's Day, a holiday that should have been another over-the-top public display of love. Instead, Travis was performing in one city while Kourtney stayed behind in Sydney with the kids. Headlines immediately pounced. How could a couple who built their entire image on being inseparable not even spend Valentine's Day together? For fans, it was the clearest sign yet that something was off. Friends revealed that Kourtney leaned heavily on her inner circle just to make it through the tour. The exhaustion was real, and the distance between her and Travis grew more obvious with each stop. For the public, the cracks were starting to show. For Scott Disick, it was exactly the kind of situation he expected to expose the truth, because glossy Instagram posts can hide a lot at home, but life on the road magnifies everything. Travis was caught between his rockstar identity and his family obligations, while Kourtney was left juggling the impossible. The fairy tale that once looked unstoppable suddenly seemed fragile, and when the tour ended, another revelation raised even bigger questions. One that made people wonder if Kourtney and Travis were ever truly living like a married couple at all. For most couples, marriage means building a home together. But for Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker, tying the knot didn't mean sharing a roof. Even after multiple weddings and the birth of baby Rocky, the two continued living in separate houses across the street from each other in Calabasas. On the surface, their explanation sounded reasonable. Both had children from previous relationships, each with their own bedrooms, routines, and comfort zones. Uprooting them overnight, Kourtney explained, could cause unnecessary chaos. Maintaining separate homes was a way to keep stability for the kids. But to fans, the story didn't add up. Why stage lavish weddings that screamed unity only to retreat to separate houses afterward? Why project endless intimacy online while choosing distance in private? The optics felt off. Like the perfect couple narrative was crumbling under its own contradictions. Then came the detail that made people question the marriage even more. Kourtney admitted she often co-slept. Not with Travis, but with her daughter, Penelope. For some, it was a sweet example of mother-daughter closeness. For others, it raised a serious question. What did this say about her relationship with her husband? Scott Disick didn't miss the irony. He hinted that while Kourtney and Travis played the role of the inseparable power couple in public, their private choices told another story entirely. Separate homes, separate routines, separate beds. To him, this wasn't a thoughtful parenting decision. It was a red flag waving in plain sight, and the symbolism wasn't lost on fans either. A romance once built on being inseparable now seemed perfectly comfortable with physical separation. To some, that looked like maturity. To others, it looked like the first signs of unraveling. For Kourtney and Travis, distance was now part of the routine. And in a marriage already strained by jealousy, family drama, and life on tour, that distance didn't look like balance. It looked like foreshadowing, and that's when Scott finally broke his silence. His secret message would turn whispers into headlines and add fuel to rumors that the fairy tale had already collapsed. For months, Scott Disick played the role of the quiet observer. He showed up to family events, smiled politely on camera, and stayed out of the drama while Kourtney and Travis soaked up the spotlight. Fans assumed he was finally keeping his distance. A co-parent, nothing more. But then, out of nowhere, Scott broke his silence. Not through a long interview or a tabloid sit-down, but with a cryptic message that hit social media like a thunderclap. The words were short, but sharp. Loaded. Enough that fans immediately started connecting dots. Was he throwing shade at Travis? Sending a signal to Kourtney? Or simply voicing what many already suspected? That the fairy tale wasn't as perfect as it seemed. The timing was no coincidence. Divorce rumors were louder than ever, and Scott's message dropped right in the middle of the chaos. To some, it looked like jealousy. To others, it was brutally honest. Because Scott wasn't just another commentator, he was the father of Kourtney's children, a man who had lived through Kardashian drama from the inside, who knew the difference between what played on screen and what happened in private. And he didn't hold back. Scott implied that the roses, the weddings, and the endless PDA weren't proof of everlasting love. They were a performance, a cover-up for cracks that had been there all along. He hinted that Kourtney had lost pieces of herself in the relationship, reshaping her identity to fit into Travis's world. And perhaps most cutting of all, he questioned whether Travis had ever truly changed, suggesting the Rockstar's history of infidelity wasn't in the past at all. Fans split instantly. Some accused Scott of bitterness, unable to move on. Others praised him for finally saying what everyone else was too scared to admit, that the picture-perfect romance was collapsing from within. But whether you saw it as shade, jealousy, or brutal truth, Scott's message did something the tabloids never could. It gave the divorce rumors credibility. Because when the father of Kourtney's children spoke, people listened, and suddenly every awkward Valentine's apart, every separate home, every icy sister stare wasn't just gossip. It was evidence. The so-called fairy tale wasn't just cracking, it was unraveling. From the outside, Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker's romance looked like the ultimate Hollywood dream. A whirlwind proposal surrounded by roses, multiple weddings fit for royalty, the birth of baby Rocky, and a blended family that seemed picture perfect. For millions of fans, they weren't just a couple, they were proof that true love could survive fame, tabloids, and endless public attention. But peel back the layers, and a very different picture emerges. The whispers of Travis's past never fully disappeared. From his history of infidelity to his infamous crush on Kim Kardashian, that revelation only fueled the long-standing rivalry between Kourtney and her sister, turning family gatherings into battlegrounds. The constant public affection that once drew praise began to look like performance, especially when the strain of touring exposed exhaustion and emotional distance. And the detail that they weren't even living under the same roof left fans questioning whether they were ever truly united at all. And then came Scott Disick's secret message, the cryptic words that turned whispers into headlines. To some, it was jealousy. To others, it was honesty. But no matter how you interpret it, his timing and his insight gave weight to what fans had suspected all along, that the fairy tale was built on spectacle, not substance. And the cracks had been there from the very beginning. Now, with divorce rumors growing louder, one question hangs over everything. Are Kourtney and Travis simply weathering the natural storms of a high-pressure Hollywood marriage? Or are we watching the slow unraveling of a love story that burned too bright, too fast? Only time will tell whether they fight to prove everyone wrong or become the next Kardashian couple to collapse under the spotlight. But one thing is certain, when it comes to this family, the drama never ends. So now it's your turn. What do you think Scott's secret message really meant? Was it a signal that he still has feelings for Kourtney? Or his way of calling out a love story he never believed in? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to hit subscribe. Because with the Kardashians, the next twist is always just around the corner.